Hi, I'm Kristen. I am a mum of one and I'm part of the Fertility Support Group Singapore. So for me, I found out that I have polycystic ovaries at 23. Before that, I was actually a very smitten girl who you have cramps and I don't have. So I got my period once in 7 months. So I went for an injection, like an immunization jab, and then the nurse will always ask you, when was your last period? And I think at that point of time, I was like 6 months ago, and she was like, are you sure you're not pregnant? And I was like, I'm positive I'm not pregnant because my periods were always irregular. So then she offered to refer me to the gynae, and I said okay because I knew it was subsidized care, and back then I was a student. And then when they did all the scans and everything, they told me I had polycystic ovaries. Back then they put me on birth control. They told me, oh, if you want to conceive next time, you come back to us. But back then I was 23, not married, and at that point I didn't really, it didn't bother me that this was a problem. So when I got married, I did tell my husband, I have this problem, it may cause some fertility issues. So we probably, even though we didn't want to have kids immediately after marriage, we had agreed to start trying earlier, simply because we knew that this would possibly be an issue. So fast forward to a year after we got married, then we realized there was still no news, and we thought, okay, maybe we should get some help. So the doctors did the screening again. They told us, you still have your polycystic ovaries, your period is still not very regular, we need to look at how we can help you ovulate. So they offered me Clomid. Some of you will know Clomid, and with Clomid, I took a few cycles, it didn't really help. And so I said, okay, I'm going for TCM. So I did TCM. Back then I was very skeptical, wasn't sure whether it would help, but I thought, let's just try something more natural. So they did acupuncture and they gave me the herbs to try, and it seemed to help with my period. And so on the gynae's end, they did tell me to do a HSG, to go check if my fallopian tubes were clear. So in August 2018, when they did the HSG, they realized that both my fallopian tubes were actually blocked, but thankfully they were able to unblock it during the procedure. So then finally, after 2 years of over 2 years of actually trying properly, then we realized that this was the biggest barrier. And then 9 months after we had unblocked the tubes, then my daughter was conceived. I think we initially went along with whatever the gynae said, and then I happened to have a friend who was struggling, and she happened to mention that she was going to TCM, and she recommended a TCM that she knew as well to try. So I said, okay, why not? That's why, initially I said I was skeptical, wasn't sure if it would help, but I thought, just try. So with the TCM, I think apart from the herbs and the medication and the acupuncture that she offered, a big part of it was that she taught us how to track our basal body temperature, which means taking your temperature first thing in the morning, every day. And actually after you ovulate, you should actually see a spike in the temperature, and the temperature should stay high until your period is supposed to come, then it will drop, or if you have conceived, then the base temperature will stay high. Yeah, so she taught us to look out for that. She taught us to use ovulation kits. She even taught us when exactly to do the deed, in terms of when your cycle is. So these kind of patterns that she taught us really helped me to understand my cycle a lot better. And so that I was a lot less clueless about what ovulation, period, and all these things meant. 10 years ago, there was not a lot of talk about polycystic ovaries. Whatever support I received was by chance. It just so happened that my friend was willing to talk about her struggles with her fertility, that I had someone to talk to about it. When I was going through it, I felt too ashamed to talk about it or to ask questions about it. At that point of time, I felt like it was shameful for me to not be able to have a kid. I felt like my body had failed me, and it didn't feel like that was something that I wanted it felt like a weakness that I didn't want to talk about. But I also realized that online on Instagram, there were more and more, mostly they were Americans, but a lot of Americans who were actually talking about their struggles with their fertility, even while they were going through it. And I felt like, I wanted to be able to advocate for that later on. So I think for other moms who are going through this as well, like if I could tell if I could tell my younger self this, I would tell myself not to be afraid to share my story, because you never know who you could come across that may be going through the same story as well. Yeah, I think lastly, try and find a support group or a group of people who at least you can talk and share with. Doesn't have to be people who go through the same thing as you. There are also people who are very gifted there are people who don't go through fertility issues but are very gifted in listening to your problems and really showing you support even though they have no idea what you're going through. And those can also be your support group.